The morning sun rose over Verdun 7 like it did every day, painting the endless fields of wheat and rice in shades of gold and green. Kang Do-hyun stood on the porch of his farmhouse, holding a cup of coffee and watching his colony wake up. 12,000 people lived here, and he knew almost every single one of them by name. It had been 15 years since Do-hyun left Earth. 15 years since he traded his military uniform for farming clothes. Back then, he was a combat engineer, building bridges and bunkers while enemy fire rained down around him. Now he built irrigation systems and grain silos. He liked this life better. "You're up early again," said a soft voice behind him. Do-hyun turned to see his wife, Yoon Nari, walking out with her own cup of coffee. She was still beautiful after 20 years of marriage. Her hair was showing some gray now, but her eyes still sparkled with the same warmth that made him fall in love with her back on Earth. "Couldn't sleep," he admitted. "Council patrol ships entered the system yesterday. 3 of them." Nari frowned. "Is that unusual?" "Probably nothing. But they didn't respond to our greeting signals." He took a sip of coffee. "I don't like it when things are unusual." Their daughter, Kang Sora, came bursting out of the house a moment later. At 17, she had her mother's beauty and her father's stubborn spirit. She was wearing her Flight Academy application shirt, the one she wore at least 3 times a week. "Did you hear about the ships?" she asked excitedly. "Maybe they're recruiting. Maybe they need pilots." Do-hyun smiled despite his worry. "The Galactic Council doesn't recruit humans for anything important, sweetheart. You know that." It was true. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council 80 years ago, when the first alien ships arrived at Earth. The Council was a coalition of 340 different species, controlling over 12,000 worlds. Humans were the newest members, and the Council made sure they never forgot it. Humans were given the worst territories. Humans were denied seats on the High Council. Humans were tolerated, not respected. Most alien species saw them as primitive creatures who got lucky and discovered space travel. Nothing more. But none of that stopped Sora from dreaming. "Things can change, Dad. Humans are smart. Eventually, they'll see that." Do-hyun kissed his daughter's forehead. "I hope you're right." The day passed normally. Do-hyun attended meetings, approved farming schedules, and settled a dispute between 2 neighbors about water rights. Nari taught classes at the colony school in the morning and worked at the medical clinic in the afternoon. Sora helped in the fields after her studies, already strong and capable despite her young age. Verdun 7 was not a rich colony. It had no strategic importance. The people here were farmers, teachers, doctors, and craftsmen who wanted simple lives far from the crowded cities of Earth. They asked for nothing from the galaxy except to be left alone. The galaxy, it seemed, had other plans. The Valkyrie ships landed at sunset. Do-hyun was in his office when the alert came. He rushed outside to see 3 massive warships settling onto the landing field, their engines scorching the grass black. The Valkyrie were one of the Council's enforcer species, tall insectoid creatures with 4 arms and compound eyes that showed no emotion. A crowd was already gathering when Do-hyun arrived. He pushed his way to the front, his old military training kicking in despite 15 years of peaceful living. Lee Taiwan, the colony's head of security and a former Marine, fell into step beside him. "I count about 200 soldiers," Taiwan muttered. "Full combat gear. Plasma rifles. For an agricultural colony." Do-hyun's stomach tightened. This isn't a patrol. The lead Valkyrie commander stepped forward. He was taller than the others, his exoskeleton decorated with markings that Do-hyun recognized as high-rank insignia. When he spoke, his voice came through a translator device, flat and emotionless. "I am Commander Vikral of the Valkyrie Enforcement Fleet. I speak with the authority of the Galactic High Council." Do-hyun stepped forward. I'm Governor Kang Do-hyun. Welcome to Verdant 7. How can we help you? You cannot help us, human. You can only obey. The commander's compound eyes fixed on Do-hyun without blinking. Deep scans have revealed significant deposits of stellarium beneath this colony. Stellarium is essential for Council military production. This world is hereby requisitioned for mining operations. A murmur of shock ran through the crowd. Stellarium was rare, valuable beyond measure. But surely there was a mistake. Commander, with respect, this colony has been legally established for 15 years, Do-hyun said, keeping his voice calm. Under Council colonization law, we have protected status. Any resource extraction must be negotiated and compensated. Human colonization rights exist at the Council's discretion, Vikral replied. They have been revoked. You have 3 solar cycles to evacuate all personnel and equipment. After that time, any humans remaining will be considered trespassers and dealt with accordingly. 3 days? Do-hyun couldn't believe what he was hearing. We have 12,000 people here. Families, children, elderly who can't travel quickly. We need more time. We need transport ships. We need somewhere to go. Your needs are not the Council's concern. The commander turned away. 3 cycles, human. I suggest you begin immediately. The Valkyrie soldiers marched back to their ships without another word. Within minutes, the warships lifted off, taking position in orbit where they would wait and watch. The crowd erupted into chaos. People shouted questions, demanded answers, wept with fear. Do-hyun raised his hands, trying to restore calm. Everyone, please. I need you to stay calm. We will figure this out. How? An old farmer shouted. Where will we go? I've spent 10 years building my farm. Everything I have is here. My daughter is sick. A young mother cried. She can't survive a rushed evacuation. Do-hyun looked at their faces and saw his own fear reflected back at him. These were good people. They had done nothing wrong. They had come here seeking peace, seeking a simple life, and now they were being thrown away like garbage. We will contact Earth, he said firmly. We will contact every human colony, every friendly species we know. Someone will help us. Someone will listen. Taiwan leaned close to whisper in his ear. And if no one does? Do-hyun didn't answer. He didn't have an answer. That night, he sat with Nari and Sora in their kitchen. The house was quiet. Outside, he could hear people crying, arguing, praying. His colony was falling apart, and he didn't know how to stop it. Maybe we should just go, Nari said softly. Find somewhere else. Start over. Where? Sora asked bitterly. No one wants humans. We're nothing to them. Less than nothing. Do-hyun reached out and took both their hands. We're not nothing. We're human. We've survived worse than this. Ice ages, plagues, wars. We've always survived. But we've never faced anything like the Council, Nari said. No, Do-hyun admitted. We haven't. He looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere up there, Valkyrie warships waited to destroy everything he had built. Beyond them, a galaxy of 12,000 worlds watched with complete indifference. The galaxy expected compliance. That's what humans always gave, wasn't it? They complained, they protested, but in the end, they obeyed. They had no choice. But as Do-hyun sat there, holding his family's hands, something hard and cold began to form in his chest. He had been a soldier once. He remembered what it felt like to fight. He remembered what humans could do when they were pushed too far. The galaxy didn't know. How could they? They had never really seen humans fight. Not really. Not when it mattered. 3 days passed like 3 heartbeats. Do-hyun sent messages to Earth, to other colonies, to anyone who might help. The responses were the same everywhere. Sympathy, but no action. The council was too powerful. No one wanted to risk their position for one small colony. On the morning of the third day, Do-hyun made his decision. They would not leave. They would stand together, peacefully, and show the galaxy that humans would not be erased quietly. He did not know that this decision would change everything. He did not know that within 3 days, his wife and daughter would be dead, and the galaxy would learn exactly what human retribution looked like. But that was still to come. For now, Kang Do-hyun simply held his family close and waited for dawn. The central plaza of Verdant 7 had never held so many people. Farmers stood next to teachers. Children sat on their parents' shoulders. Old men and women who could barely walk had come anyway, supported by their families. Nearly 8,000 colonists filled the square, with more watching from windows and rooftops. Kang Do-hyun stood on a small platform at the center, looking out at his people. His wife Nari stood beside him, her hand gripping his tightly. Their daughter Sora was somewhere in the crowd with her friends, probably near the front where she could see everything. "Thank you all for coming," Do-hyun said into the microphone. His voice carried across the plaza, amplified by speakers. "I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But I believe that if we stand together, if we show the galaxy that we are peaceful people who just want to keep our homes, someone will listen." A cheer rose from the crowd. People raised signs they had made during the night. "This is our home. We are human. We will not be erased." Park Ji-ae, a young nurse who worked with Nari at the clinic, moved through the crowd with her medical bag. She had set up a small tent at the edge of the plaza in case anyone needed help. Heat exhaustion was her biggest worry. The day was warm, and many people had been standing for hours. She stopped next to Lee Taiwan, the security chief, who was watching the sky with hard eyes. "Do you think they'll really come?" she asked. Taiwan nodded slowly. "They'll come. The Valkyrie don't make empty threats. But we're not armed. We're not fighting. We're just standing here." To them, that's the same thing as fighting. Taiwan checked his watch. The deadline passed 2 hours ago. If they were going to give us more time, we would have heard by now. Ji-ae looked at the families around her. A little boy was eating a sandwich his mother had packed. 2 teenage girls were taking pictures of each other with the protest signs. An old couple held hands, singing softly along with the colony choir. "They wouldn't attack civilians," she said. "Not even the council would allow that." Taiwan didn't answer. He had fought the Valkyrie once, 20 years ago, in a border skirmish that the council covered up. He knew exactly what they were capable of. On the platform, Do-hyun was leading the crowd in an old Earth song. It was something his grandmother had taught him, a song about hope and standing together. Nari sang beside him, her voice clear and beautiful. For a moment, Do-hyun let himself believe that everything would be okay. Then he saw the ships. They came from the east, flying low and fast. 5 Valkyrie dropships, their weapons already powered up and glowing. They moved in perfect formation, spreading out to surround the plaza from all sides. The singing stopped. People looked up, confused at first, then afraid. "Everyone stay calm," Do-hyun shouted. "This is a peaceful demonstration. We are not armed. We are not a threat." Commander Vikral's voice boomed from speakers on the lead ship. "Attention, human colonists. You have violated the lawful order to evacuate. You are now classified as trespassers resisting council authority. This is your final warning. Disperse immediately or face enforcement action." "We're not moving," someone shouted from the crowd. "This is our home." Another voice called out. The crowd began to chant. "We will not leave. We will not leave." Do-hyun saw his daughter Sora near the front, her fist raised, her face full of defiance and courage. She was so young. She had her whole life ahead of her. In that moment, he felt a terrible fear grip his heart. "Sora!" he called out. "Sora, come here." But his voice was lost in the chanting. 8,000 voices rising together, humans standing united for their homes, for their lives. Commander Vikral watched from his ship with cold, compound eyes. The humans were not dispersing. They were resisting. In Valkyrie culture, there was only one response to resistance. "All units," he said calmly, "commence enforcement." The first plasma bolt hit the center of the crowd. GA would never forget the sound. A high-pitched whine, then a boom, then screaming. So much screaming. She was thrown backward by the blast, her ears ringing, her vision blurred. When she looked up, there was smoke everywhere and bodies on the ground. The Valkyrie soldiers had landed now, moving through the plaza in disciplined lines, firing at anything that moved. They showed no emotion, no hesitation. They killed with the same efficiency they would use to clear a field of pests. People ran in every direction, but there was nowhere to go. The dropships had surrounded the plaza. Soldiers blocked every exit. Families tried to protect their children, throwing themselves over small bodies as plasma fire rained down. Do-hyun grabbed Nari and pulled her behind the platform. "Stay down! Stay down!" "Where's Sora?" Nari screamed. "Where's our daughter?" Do-hyun looked out at the chaos. The smoke was too thick. He couldn't see anything. He tried to run toward where he had last seen Sora, but Taiwan tackled him to the ground as a plasma bolt flew over his head. "You'll die out there," Taiwan shouted. "My daughter is out there." Taiwan's face was grim. I know. But if you die, who speaks for the dead?" Nari broke free from Do-hyun's grip and ran into the smoke. She was calling Sora's name over and over. Do-hyun tried to follow, but Taiwan held him back with iron strength. The sound of plasma fire. A scream. Silence. "Nari!" Do-hyun's voice broke. "Nari!" Taiwan was pulling him now, dragging him toward an underground entrance nearby. The colony's irrigation tunnels ran beneath the plaza. It was the only way out. "We have to go," Taiwan said. "Now. I can't leave them. They're gone." Taiwan's voice cracked. "I'm sorry. They're gone. But you have to live. Someone has to tell the galaxy what happened here." A Valkyrie soldier spotted them and raised his weapon. Taiwan stepped in front of Do-hyun just as 3 plasma bolts struck him in the chest. The big Marine grunted in pain but didn't fall. He pushed Do-hyun toward the tunnel entrance. "Go, now, make them pay." Taiwan turned and charged at the soldier, roaring with rage despite his wounds. Do-hyun didn't see what happened next. He was falling into darkness, sliding down the tunnel shaft, the sounds of massacre fading above him. In the plaza, Ji-hae crawled beneath a pile of bodies. She was covered in blood that wasn't her own. Her medical scanner was still recording, as it had been since she set up her tent. She hadn't even thought to turn it off. Through the smoke, she watched the Valkyrie soldiers walk among the wounded, executing survivors with single shots to the head. She watched them kick bodies aside to search for anyone still breathing. She watched them do this with no more emotion than someone stepping on insects. The massacre lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, 8,400 humans lay dead in the plaza. Men, women, children, elderly. Families who had come to peacefully protest for their homes. Commander Vikral surveyed the scene from his ship. His compound eyes moved across the carnage without reaction. "Report," he said. "Resistance has been neutralized, Commander. Minimal Valkyrie casualties. 3 soldiers with minor injuries. And the human leadership? Unknown. Some may have escaped through underground tunnels." Vikral considered this. It didn't matter. A few survivors couldn't threaten the council. They were just humans, after all. Primitive, emotional, weak. "Begin mining operations," he ordered. "File report to High Council." Colonists resisted lawful evacuation and were neutralized per standard enforcement protocols. The council would believe it. They always did. In the darkness beneath the plaza, Do-Hyun crawled through the irrigation tunnels, his body numb, his mind shattered. He could still hear his wife scream. He could still see Sora's defiant face raised toward the sky. They were gone. His whole world was gone. But somewhere above him, Ga was still alive, still recording. And when she finally crawled out of the death pit that had been her home, she carried with her 11 minutes of footage that would change the galaxy forever. The council had killed 8,000 innocent humans and called it enforcement. They would soon learn the true meaning of that word. Part Ga sat in a small room on a rescue ship, wrapped in a blanket that couldn't stop her shaking. She had been pulled from Verdun 7 3 days after the massacre, found wandering the ruins by a human freighter that had ignored council warnings to stay away. In her hands, she held a small medical scanner. 11 minutes of footage. 8,400 deaths. Every scream, every shot, every moment of horror captured in perfect clarity. "Are you sure you want to do this?" asked the ship's captain, a tired-looking woman named Oyuna. Ga nodded. Her voice was hoarse from crying, but her eyes were dry now. She had no more tears left. "The galaxy needs to see." Captain Yuna transmitted the footage to every human world simultaneously. Within an hour, it had spread beyond human space, copied and shared by sympathetic aliens who were horrified by what they saw. Within a day, billions of beings across the galaxy had watched the Verdun 7 massacre. They saw farmers gunned down while holding protest signs. They saw mothers throwing themselves over children. They saw an old man beaten to death for trying to shield his wife. They saw a 17-year-old girl named Sora Kang, her face bright with courage, cut down by plasma fire before she could take 3 steps towards safety. And they saw the Valkyrie soldiers walking through the bodies afterward, executing the wounded with the same casual attitude as someone crushing bugs. On Earth, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Admiral Choi Yoonji was in a meeting when her aide burst through the door with a tablet showing the footage. She watched in silence, her face completely still, revealing nothing of the storm building inside her. When it ended, she set down the tablet and looked at the generals around the table. "Gentlemen," she said quietly, "I believe our situation has changed." Yoonji was 53 years old and had served in the human fleet for 30 years. She had never lost a battle, though humans rarely fought anything larger than pirate skirmishes. Her mind worked like a computer, analyzing patterns and weaknesses that others couldn't see. But beneath that cold exterior was a fury she had kept hidden all her life. She had always known this day would come. Humanity couldn't stay small forever, couldn't keep bowing and accepting whatever scraps the council threw their way. She had spent decades preparing for the moment when humans would have to fight back. That moment had arrived. Across Earth, the response was unlike anything in human history. Nations that had been arguing for centuries suddenly stopped fighting. Old enemies shook hands. Political parties that couldn't agree on anything found themselves agreeing on this. The massacre could not stand. Within 1 week, the Unified Human Command was formed. Every human military, every ship, every soldier was placed under a single leadership. Admiral Yoonji was chosen to lead, with a council of generals and admirals from every major nation serving under her. Her second in command was Captain Baek Sunho, a decorated officer who had been known for his calm and steady leadership. He was not calm now. His younger brother, a 20-year-old agricultural student, had been studying on Verdun 7. Sunho had watched the massacre footage 17 times. searching for his brother's face among the dead. He never found it. The plasma fire had been too thorough. Something had changed inside Sunho. His grief had crystallized into something cold and hard and patient. When he looked at the tactical maps showing Valkyrie positions, he didn't see enemies. He saw targets. How long until we can launch an offensive? He asked Yoonji during their first meeting. We can't, she replied. Not yet. The Council has 12,000 worlds. The Valkyrie alone have 8,000 warships. We have 47 worlds and maybe 300 combat-capable vessels. If we attack now, we lose. So we do nothing? No. Yoonji pulled up a holographic display showing the galaxy. We prepare. Quietly. Completely. We let the Council think we're grieving and helpless. And when we're ready, we show them what humans can do. The next 2 years were the busiest in human history. Shipyards that had been building cargo vessels were converted overnight to military production. Scientists abandoned civilian projects to work on weapons, shields, and engines. Factories ran 24 hours a day, producing everything an army needed to fight. But humans didn't just build ships. They innovated. The galaxy had been at peace for centuries. Most species had forgotten how to truly wage war. Their tactics were simple, their strategies predictable. They had never needed anything else because no one was foolish enough to challenge the Council. Humans had never stopped fighting. They had thousands of years of warfare to draw from, countless battles and campaigns studied and remembered. They had fought each other with sticks and stones, with swords and arrows, with guns and bombs and nuclear weapons. They had developed strategies that no alien species could imagine because no alien species had their history. Admiral Yoonji assembled the greatest military minds in human history. They studied every battle humans had ever fought, looking for tactics that could work against superior numbers and technology. They developed new doctrines, combined arms warfare, asymmetric tactics, psychological operations. They learned to fight not just with ships, but with information, with timing, with the enemy's own expectations. Across human space, recruitment centers overflowed. Young people who had grown up being told they were insignificant suddenly had purpose. Retired soldiers came back to service. Elderly veterans offered to train the next generation. Everyone wanted to contribute. Han-Marie was 20 years old when she joined the infantry. She had grown up on a mining colony, tough and practical, never expecting much from life. When she saw the Verdant 7 footage, something woke up inside her that she hadn't known existed. She trained harder than anyone in her unit. She learned every weapon, every tactic, every trick her instructors could teach. When her drill sergeant asked why she pushed herself so hard, she showed him a picture she kept in her pocket. It was a screenshot from the massacre footage. The face of Sora Kang frozen in the moment before her death, her eyes full of defiance. I didn't know her, Myre said, but she could have been my sister. She could have been me. I'm going to make sure her death means something. The Council watched human activity with mild amusement. They saw the ships being built, the soldiers being trained. But they had seen such reactions before. Smaller species often threw tantrums when they were disciplined. They always calmed down eventually. Let them play at war, the High Council declared. They will exhaust themselves and learn their place. The Valkyrie were less certain. Commander Vikral, now promoted for his efficient handling of Verdant 7, submitted a report warning that humans were more dangerous than they appeared. His superiors dismissed it. They are primates who stumbled into space travel, one council member said. They have no allies, no resources, no experience with real warfare. What can they possibly do? Governor Kang Do-hyun could have answered that question. He had survived a massacre, pulled from the tunnels by human rescue teams who had defied council orders to search for survivors. Now he served as the voice of Verdant 7, traveling to every human world, speaking at rallies and meetings. His message was always the same. I watched my wife die. I watched my daughter die. I watched 8,000 of my people murdered for the crime of wanting to keep their homes. The council calls this enforcement. I call it what it is, murder. And murder demands justice. He had changed. The peaceful farmer was gone. In his place was something harder, colder, driven by a rage that would never cool. When he spoke, people listened. When he called for action, people answered. The galaxy expected compliance. They expected humans to mourn, then accept, then move on. They had no idea what was coming. 2 years to the day after the massacre, Admiral Yunji stood before a war council of every human military leader. On the screens around her were images of Valkyrie shipyards, mining operations, supply routes. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, it's time to teach the galaxy something they've forgotten. What's that? Sunho asked. Yunji smiled, and there was nothing warm in it. That humans don't forgive. And we never, ever forget. The galaxy woke up on the 2nd anniversary of Verdant 7 to discover that everything had changed. In a single coordinated strike, human forces hit 217 targets across Council space simultaneously. Stellar ion mines, processing facilities, transport convoys, fuel depots. Every critical link in the Council's military supply chain was attacked at the exact same moment, down to the second. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. The Council's communication networks exploded with confused reports. How had the humans coordinated so perfectly? How had they moved so many ships without being detected? How had they known exactly where to strike? Admiral Choi Yunji watched the reports come in from her command ship, the U.S. Remembrance. Named for the dead of Verdant 7. Named so the galaxy would know this was not conquest. This was justice. Phase 1 complete, her tactical officer reported. All primary targets destroyed. Enemy response is chaotic and uncoordinated. As expected, Yunji replied calmly. Begin Phase 2. The Council had grown lazy over centuries of peace. Their species communicated slowly, made decisions by committee, and followed predictable patterns that hadn't changed in 1,000 years. Yunji had studied these patterns for 2 years. She knew exactly how they would respond to any threat. What she gave them was something they couldn't respond to at all. Human tactics were built around one principle. Hit where they aren't looking, then disappear before they can react. Small, fast strike groups attacked critical targets and vanished into empty space before the enemy could organize a defense. By the time Council forces arrived, the humans were gone, already striking somewhere else. The Valkyrie were the first to truly fight back. Commander Vikro, now a fleet admiral, led 800 warships to intercept a human battle group near the Valkyrie colony world of Kreth 4. He had superior numbers, superior firepower, and centuries of military tradition behind him. Captain Beek Sunho had 90 ships. They're forming standard engagement formation, Sunho's sensor officer reported. Classic Valkyrie grid pattern. They're expecting us to meet them head-on. Then let's not disappoint them. Sunho leaned forward in his command chair. Signal all ships. Execute Pattern Sigma 7. The Council had never heard of Pattern Sigma 7. It was based on a battle fought on Earth over 4,000 years ago, when a small Greek force used terrain and timing to destroy a Persian army 10 times their size. Humans remembered that battle. They remembered all of them. Sunho's fleet advanced as if to engage directly, then split at the last moment. One group diving below the Valkyrie formation, while another climbed above. The main force feinted left, drawing the enemy's attention, while strike teams used the confusion to target command ships and communication relays. Vikral had never seen enemies coordinate so seamlessly without constant communication. He didn't understand that human commanders were trained to act independently, to read the battlefield and make decisions without waiting for orders. Every ship captain knew the plan. Every captain could adapt when things changed. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 300 Valkyrie ships were destroyed or disabled. Sunho had lost 11. Impossible, Vikral muttered, watching his fleet scatter and retreat. They had 90 ships, 90. But it was very possible. It was human. The war spread across the galaxy like fire. Human forces appeared where no one expected them, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before superior numbers could crush them. They didn't try to hold territory. They didn't need to. They just needed to hurt the Council badly enough to force negotiations. On the ground, the fighting was even more brutal. The Valkyrie had never fought an enemy in urban terrain. Their tactics were designed for open battlefields where superior numbers meant victory. When human marines fortified cities and forced the Valkyrie to dig them out building by building, room by room, the insectoids discovered that their advantages disappeared. Sergeant Han Mireille led her squad into the city of Vendrick Prime after human ships broke the orbital defenses. Their mission was simple: hold the central bridge until reinforcements arrived. Intelligence said they would face light resistance. Intelligence was wrong. 2,000 Valkyrie soldiers surrounded the bridge within hours. They had tanks, air support, and enough firepower to level the entire district. Myra had 15 Marines and whatever ammunition they had carried on their backs. "Sergeant, we should fall back," her corporal said. "We can't hold against this." Myra looked at her squad. 15 young humans, scared but determined, trusting her to lead them. Then she looked at the photo in her pocket. Sora Kang's face, frozen forever in defiance. "No," she said. "We hold." For 18 hours, 15 humans held that bridge against 2,000 enemies. They used every trick their training had taught them and invented new ones when the old tricks stopped working. They turned buildings into death traps. They collapsed streets into choke points. They made the Valkyrie pay for every meter in blood. Myra herself killed over 200 enemy soldiers. When her rifle ran empty, she used her pistol. When her pistol ran empty, she used her knife. When her knife broke, she picked up a Valkyrie weapon and kept fighting. When reinforcements finally broke through, they found Mireille standing in the center of the bridge, surrounded by bodies. Her armor was melted in places, burned through in others. She was bleeding from a dozen wounds. In one hand, she held a combat knife covered in alien blood. In the other, she held the photo of Sora. "Sergeant Mireille," the relief commander said, staring at the carnage. "What happened here?" "We held the bridge, sir." Mireille's voice was steady despite her wounds. "That's what happened." News of the battle spread across human space within days. Han Mireille became a symbol, her face on recruitment posters and news broadcasts. When journalists asked her how she had done it, she always gave the same answer: "We remember." Every human remembers what they did to Verdant 7. Every time I thought about giving up, I thought about those 8,000 people who never had a chance to fight back. I fought for them. The war continued for 4 years. 4 years of battles that the Council had never expected to fight. 4 years of human tactics that broke every rule the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. Admiral Yunji remained untouchable, earning the name the Ghost Admiral for her ability to appear exactly where the enemy least expected. She never attacked strength directly. She found the weakness, the blind spot, the arrogance, and she struck there with everything she had. Captain Sunho rose to Admiral through victory after victory. His fleet became the most feared in human space, appearing without warning to smash enemy formations and disappear before help could arrive. He never forgot his brother. Every battle was personal. Governor Do-hyun worked behind the scenes, building alliances with alien species who had grown tired of council tyranny. Not everyone in the galaxy supported the massacre. Some species saw the footage and recognized evil for what it was. Quietly, secretly, they helped. The council remained confident at first. They had 12,000 worlds. They had seemingly unlimited resources. Surely they could crush 47 human planets. But resources mean nothing when your supply lines are in ruins. Numbers mean nothing when your enemies kill 10 of yours for every one they lose. Tradition means nothing when the enemy rewrites the rules of warfare every time you think you understand them. By the end of Year 4, the Council's military was bleeding from 1,000 wounds. Their economy was strained. Their member species were questioning why they were losing so badly to a primitive race. And Admiral Yoonji was finally ready for the killing blow. "They're gathering everything," her intelligence officer reported. "Every ship they can spare from defense duties. 3,000 vessels assembling at the capital." Yoonji smiled. "Good. I was hoping they'd do that. Ma'am, they're concentrating their forces, putting everything in one place. They think numbers will save them." She turned to face her command staff. "They still don't understand. This isn't about numbers. It never was. What is it about, Admiral?" Yoonji's eyes were cold. "Retribution." She gave the order to advance on the council capital. Every human ship that could be spared joined the fleet. It was the largest human armada ever assembled. It was still outnumbered 3-1. But humans had learned something the galaxy had forgotten. War isn't won by the side with more ships. It's won by the side that wants it more. And no one in the galaxy wanted victory more than humanity. The council capital world of Nexus Prime had never seen war. For 3,000 years, it had been the heart of galactic civilization, a shining beacon of peace and prosperity. Its orbital stations hummed with commerce. Its cities sparkled with the light of 100 different species living together in harmony. Today, 3,000 warships hung in orbit, waiting for the human fleet to arrive. High Chancellor Morvith, the ancient leader of the Galactic Council, watched from the Grand Chamber where decisions affecting 12,000 worlds were made. He was of the elderly species, beings of pure thought who had guided the Council for millennia. He had lived for 600 years and had never known true fear. He knew it now. "They're outnumbered," his advisor reminded him. "Our fleet is 3 times their size. We have superior technology, superior firepower. They cannot win." "So everyone keeps telling me," Morvith replied. "They told me the same thing 4 years ago. They told me humans would never dare to fight. They told me this war would last weeks, not years." He turned his ancient eyes toward the view screen showing the assembled fleet. "And yet here we are, waiting for them to come to us, waiting for them to attack our capital. Does that seem like the position of a winning side?" The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at exactly the moment Admiral Yoonji had planned. 1,000 ships against 3,000. Smaller, lighter, faster. Crewed by beings who had spent 4 years learning how to kill. Admiral Sunho commanded the vanguard from his flagship, the Yuhesh Vengeance. He had started this war as a captain with a broken heart. Now he was one of the most feared admirals in the galaxy, and his heart was colder than the void between stars. "All ships, this is Sunho. You know why we're here. You know what they did. Some of you lost family on Verdant 7. Some of you lost friends. Some of you simply saw the footage and understood that it could have been anyone. It could have been you." He looked at the tactical display showing the massive enemy fleet. "Today, we end this. Today, we teach the galaxy that humans are not to be touched. Not ever again. Remember Verdant 7. Remember Verdant 7. The response came from every ship, every crew member, echoing across human space as the message was broadcast live to every world. Admiral Nju watched from the command ship Remembrance, positioned at the rear of the fleet where she could see everything. Her mind worked through the battle plan she had spent months perfecting. Every move, every countermove, every possible response the enemy could make. "Open a channel to the Council fleet," she ordered. The view screen flickered, showing the alien commanders arrayed against her. Valkyrie, Eldri, and a dozen other species, all staring at her with hatred and fear. "This is Admiral Choi Yoonji of the Unified Human Command. I offer you one chance to surrender. Power down your weapons and await boarding. Your crews will not be harmed." The lead Valkyrie commander, Admiral Vikrul, stepped forward. He had lost thousands of ships to human tactics. He had watched his reputation crumble with each defeat. His compound eyes burned with rage. "Surrender? To you? You are outnumbered 3-1, human. You will die here today, and your species will learn their place. I hoped you would say that." Yoonji nodded to her communications officer. "Broadcast the recording. All frequencies. Every ship. Every station. Every world watching." Across the galaxy, screens flickered. And then the Verdun 7 footage began to play. The Council fleet watched in silence as the massacre unfolded. Some of them had seen it before. Many had not. Their governments had suppressed it, called it human propaganda, refused to acknowledge the truth. But truth doesn't care about suppression. Truth exists whether you acknowledge it or not. 8,400 humans died on those screens. Farmers, teachers, children. They died peacefully protesting, holding signs that asked only to keep their homes. They died under Valkyrie plasma fire while the Council did nothing. "This is why we fight," Yoonji's voice carried across the void. "This is what you allowed to happen. This is what we remember. And this is what we will never forgive." She closed the channel and gave the order. "All ships, attack." The battle for Nexus Prime began with human ships diving directly into the heart of the enemy formation. It was suicide tactics by any rational measure. The Council fleet outnumbered them heavily. Superior numbers should have meant superior firepower. But Sunho's vanguard moved like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Ships twisted and spun in perfect coordination, avoiding fire that should have been unavoidable. They struck at weak points with surgical precision, crippling enemy vessels instead of destroying them, leaving them adrift to block the movements of their allies. "They're inside our formation," Vikrul shouted. "How are they inside our formation?" He didn't understand. Human pilots trained for this. They practiced maneuvers that alien species considered impossible because human reflexes were faster. Human coordination was tighter. Human will was stronger. They flew their ships like extensions of their own bodies. The battle raged for hours. Council ships fell one after another, their crews unable to match the speed and ferocity of human attacks. But humans died too. Ships exploded in brilliant bursts of light as plasma fire found its mark. Crews burned in the void, their last thoughts of home and family. On the surface of Nexus Prime, High Chancellor Morvith watched the battle with growing horror. His fleet was losing. 3,000 ships against 1,000, and somehow the Council was losing. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible?" His advisor had no answer. No one did. Sergeant Han Mireille was aboard a marine transport, waiting for the moment ground forces would be deployed. She watched the battle through viewport windows, her heart pounding with each explosion. Next to her sat Governor Kang Do-yeon. He had insisted on being present for the final battle. He needed to see it end. He needed to be there when humanity won. "Are you afraid?" Mireille asked him. Do-hyun shook his head slowly. "I stopped being afraid the day I lost my family." "Fear requires hope, Sergeant." Hope that things might go wrong. I have no hope left. Only certainty. Certainty of what? That one way or another, this ends today. He looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. Either we win and the galaxy learns to respect us, or we die trying. Either way, we will never be slaves again. The battle turned in the 6th hour. Admiral Sunho's flagship punched through the final defensive line and reached the Council command ship. His weapons targeted their bridge, their engines, their communication arrays. Not to destroy, to disable. Council command ship is neutralized, his tactical officer reported. Enemy fleet is losing coordination. Signal the Ghost Admiral, Sunho ordered. The door is open. Yunji's main fleet surged forward through the gap Sunho had created. Fresh ships with full weapons, crashing into an enemy that was already exhausted and confused. The Council formation shattered like glass. Within an hour, it was over. Half the Council fleet was destroyed. The other half had surrendered or fled. Human ships surrounded Nexus Prime like a shroud. High Chancellor Morvith received the terms of surrender via direct transmission. He read them in silence while his advisors wept and raged around him. Full recognition of human sovereignty. Reparations for Verdant 7, including the execution of all commanders responsible for the massacre. A permanent human seat on the High Council. And a new law stating that any attack on human civilians would be considered an act of war against the entire human species. They want everything, his advisor moaned. They want to humiliate us. No, Morvis said quietly. They want justice. There's a difference. He signed the surrender documents. 1 month later, the treaty was formally signed on Verdant 7, in the rebuilt Central Plaza, on the exact spot where 8,400 humans had been murdered 6 years before. Admiral Yunji stood beside Governor Do-yoon as representatives from every council species signed the documents. The Valkyrie delegation was notably quiet. Their military had been shattered. Their commanders were being tried for war crimes. They had nothing left but shame. Sergeant Mireille watched from the crowd, wearing her full dress uniform, decorated with medals she had earned in 4 years of war. Beside her stood Park Ji-ae, now the colony's chief medical officer, the woman who had recorded the massacre, the woman whose footage had shown the galaxy what humans were willing to fight for. When the ceremony ended, a journalist from an alien news network approached Do-yoon. Governor, the galaxy wants to understand. How did humans achieve the impossible? You were outnumbered, outgunned, outmatched in every way. How did you win? Do-yoon looked at the memorial statue in the plaza center. A bronze figure of a woman shielding a child. It was modeled after a photograph from the massacre. A mother named Yunari, trying to protect her daughter in the final moments of her life. His wife, his daughter. You expected us to comply, he said softly. You counted our ships, our worlds, our resources, and you decided we were manageable. But you forgot to count one thing. What? Our anger. He turned to face the journalist, and his eyes were hard as steel. We are not a species that forgets. We are not a species that forgives. When you hurt us, we don't calculate the odds of victory. We don't weigh the costs against the benefits. We simply decide that you will pay, and then we make it happen.